In the vast expanse of space, humanity had always dreamed of finding other intelligent life. We got our wish in 2157, but not quite how we expected. I still remember that day, the day when massive crystalline ships appeared in our orbit, their hulls shimmering like diamonds under Earth's sun. The Galactic Council, they called themselves, a federation of the most advanced species in our arm of the galaxy. They came with their noses held high, metaphorically speaking, since most of them didn't even have noses. To them, we were just another primitive species to add to their collection, another civilization to guide toward their version of enlightenment. Their spokesperson, a tall being with iridescent scales, didn't even try to hide their contempt as they delivered their message to the United Earth government. Your species has potential, they had said, their translator converting their melodic language into crisp English. But you're too violent, too unpredictable. We'll help you overcome these primitive tendencies. The way they said it made my blood boil, and I wasn't even there. I just watched it like everyone else did, through the global broadcast that changed our world forever. They gave us an ultimatum: accept their guidance and give up our military capabilities, or face isolation from the galactic community. They called it protection. We called it submission. But here's the thing about humans: we don't take kindly to being told what to do, especially by aliens who think they know what's best for us. The Council didn't understand why we hesitated. They couldn't comprehend why we wouldn't jump at the chance to join their perfect little society. After all, they had done this hundreds of times before with other species. But they made one crucial mistake. They underestimated Earth's response. What happened next has become legend among the stars. The Council thought they knew everything about us. They had studied our broadcasts, our internet, our visible military capabilities. But they never found what we had hidden deep beneath the Antarctic ice, or scattered in bunkers across the Sahara, or floating in the darkest depths of our oceans. You see, while they were busy judging us for our primitive tendencies, we had been preparing. Not for them specifically. We didn't even know they existed. But centuries of science fiction had taught us one thing: hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And when humanity prepares, we don't mess around. I'm recording this story because people need to know what really happened, not the sanitized version the Council tries to spread, or the exaggerated tales that float around the quantum net. The truth about how a primitive species turned the tables on the most powerful organization in this part of the galaxy. The Council gave us one Earth month to decide our fate. They expected submission. Instead, they got a response that would shake the foundations of their 10,000-year-old federation. A response that would make them question everything they thought they knew about primitive species. But before I tell you about that response, about the day Earth showed its teeth, you need to understand what led to this moment. You need to know about Project Phoenix, about the sacrifices made in secret to protect our independence, and about the brave individuals who risked everything to ensure humanity would never bow to alien overlords. So sit back, because this is going to be one hell of a story. And trust me, by the time I'm done, you'll understand why the phrase "don't mess with Earth" has become the most feared warning in galactic space. But first, let me take you back to where it all began, 3 days before we gave the Council our answer. The Galactic Council wasn't just a political body. It was a civilization unto itself. Imagine the United Nations, but spread across thousands of star systems and representing species that had mastered everything from time dilation to consciousness transfer. Their central station, a massive structure floating in neutral space, housed representatives from over 300 advanced civilizations. The architecture itself was a testament to their power: corridors that seemed to bend reality, rooms that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and technology that made our most advanced quantum computers look like ancient calculators. But here's what they didn't understand about humans. We're incredibly good at spotting patterns, especially when someone's trying to manipulate us. During my first year as junior representative, I noticed how they always scheduled Earth's petitions for development aid during the Council's rest cycle, when attendance was lowest. How they consistently lost our applications for access to higher-tier technologies. Little things that added up to a clear picture of systematic discrimination. The Council's archives became my second home. While other representatives spent their time networking at diplomatic functions, I buried myself in historical records, technical manuals, and legal precedents. That's where I found it. Article 7249, subsection Delta, of the original charter, a seemingly innocent clause about species sovereignty that hadn't been invoked in over 50,000 years. The timing couldn't have been better. The Council had just announced their Human Enhancement Initiative, with overwhelming support from the major powers. The Arcturians, with their crystalline bodies and group consciousness, were particularly vocal about how this would elevate humanity. The Zeth Collective, beings of pure energy, had already drawn up plans for genetic modification centers on Earth. What they failed to notice was how Earth's representatives had suddenly gone quiet. No protests, no diplomatic outrage, just silent observation and careful documentation. Ambassador Chen's infamous speech wasn't just an emotional response. It was the trigger for a carefully orchestrated legal challenge that had been months in the making. You see, that obscure Article 7249 had originally been written to protect developing civilizations from exactly this kind of forced evolution. The irony was perfect. We used their own ancient laws, written when they were young species themselves, to protect our right to remain primitive. But that was just the beginning. As we dug deeper into the archives, we discovered something that made even the eldest council members nervous. Hidden beneath layers of bureaucratic language and forgotten protocols was evidence that humanity wasn't the first species they had tried to enhance. There were others, civilizations that had simply disappeared from the historical record after refusing similar proposals. The data crystal I'm holding right now contains names of worlds I can't even pronounce, species that vanished without a trace. Official records claimed they had chosen isolation, but our team of cynoarchaeologists found evidence suggesting something far more disturbing. The Council's perfect image of benevolent leadership was starting to crack. I remember the moment we presented our initial findings to Earth's Security Council. The room was dead silent as we displayed holographic evidence of systematic manipulation spanning thousands of years. One of the generals, a decorated veteran of the Mars Colony's war, actually whistled when she saw the scale of what we were up against. But we had something the previous victims didn't: centuries of experience in dealing with powerful entities trying to impose their will on others. Our history, which the Council saw as proof of our barbarism, had actually prepared us perfectly for this moment. We knew how to fight battles in courtrooms as well as battlefields. As I organized these classified files for public release, I can't help but think about what happened next. The day we presented our evidence to the full Council was the day the galaxy learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our technology or our military might. It was something far more powerful. The day we presented our evidence to the full Council chamber remains etched in my memory. The massive amphitheater was packed with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The air itself seemed to crackle with tension as Ambassador Chen stepped onto the central platform. Behind her, holographic displays flickered to life, each one loaded with centuries of carefully compiled evidence. What happened in the next few hours would later be dubbed the Great Revelation by Galactic media. One by one, we laid bare the Council's darkest secrets, not through accusations or emotional appeals, but through their own records, their own words, meticulously preserved in their supposedly secure archives. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. The Arcturian delegation's crystalline forms began vibrating at frequencies that shattered their translation devices. The Zeth Collective's energy signatures fluctuated so wildly that the chamber's containment fields had to be reinforced. But the real shock came when we revealed the existence of the Lost Species Registry, a classified database we'd uncovered containing detailed records of every civilization that had mysteriously chosen isolation after refusing enhancement. Hundreds of species, each with their own unique culture and potential, simply erased from galactic memory. As we projected their images above the chamber, the younger council members began to visibly react. Many had never known these civilizations existed. The council's high speaker, a towering being of swirling gases named in sounds I still can't pronounce, attempted to call for an emergency recess. That's when Ambassador Chen played our masterstroke. She activated a quantum-encrypted broadcast channel, one we'd secretly established weeks before. Every populated world and council space was now receiving our presentation in real time, complete with authenticated documentation. The chamber erupted into chaos. Species that had been rivals for millennia suddenly found themselves united in demanding answers. The Arcturians, longtime supporters of the Council's enhancement programs, were now facing tough questions from their own population. The Zeth Collective's unified consciousness actually split into competing factions for the first time in their recorded history. What made it all worse for them was how we presented our case. We didn't come as angry primitives demanding justice. Instead, we came as careful archivists, methodical investigators who had simply uncovered troubling inconsistencies that needed to be addressed. Our reputation for being emotional and unstable actually worked in our favor. Nobody expected such a calculated, methodical approach from humans. The Council's emergency response teams scrambled to contain the situation, but they were fighting a losing battle against something they'd never truly understood: information warfare. Earth's experience with social media, viral content, and digital revolution had prepared us perfectly for this moment. Within hours, civilian networks across the galaxy were buzzing with discussions, debates, and demands for accountability. But just as the Council seemed on the verge of total diplomatic collapse, something unexpected happened. One of the eldest members of the Zeth Collective, a being who had witnessed the formation of the Council itself, requested to address the chamber. The chaos subsided as this ancient entity began to speak, its energy form pulsing with what I could swear was fear. There is something, it said, its words translated in every known language, that we have never revealed about the true purpose of the Enhancement Initiative. Something so crucial to the survival of all sapient life that we believed the end justified any means. The chamber fell completely silent as the ancient beam moved toward the center platform, its energy form dimming to a barely visible flicker. What it said next would change not just Earth's position in the galaxy, but the very foundation of galactic civilization itself. The ancient Zeth's revelation hit the chamber like a supernova. According to the being, the galaxy was facing an existential threat, one that had been approaching for millions of years. The Enhancement Initiative wasn't just about making species better or more civilized. It was about preparing every spacefaring race for a war they believed was coming, a threat so massive that it had already devoured several neighboring galaxies. But here's where it got interesting. The Zeth's voice trembled as it explained that all their previous attempts at enhancement had failed because they were trying to create perfect, logical beings, stripping away the very qualities that made each species unique. Every civilization they had helped had become so homogenized, so predictable, that they simply couldn't adapt when faced with real challenges. Those species hadn't chosen isolation. They'd become functionally extinct, their enhanced versions nothing more than biological automatons. The chamber erupted again, but this time the chaos had a different flavor. Fear mixed with anger, betrayal with disbelief. The Council's biggest secret wasn't just their manipulation of other species, it was their complete failure to achieve what they'd set out to do. For millions of years, they'd been desperately trying to create the perfect defense force, and all they'd managed to do was destroy countless civilizations in the process. Ambassador Chen stood quietly during this revelation, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. We had known about the threat. Our deep space monitoring stations had detected something massive moving between the galaxies. But what the Council didn't know was that humanity had already been preparing, in our own unique way. While they were busy trying to perfect species through genetic manipulation, Earth had been developing something entirely different. We called it the Unity Protocol, a system that allowed different species to work together while maintaining their unique characteristics and strengths. No genetic modification, no forced evolution, just pure collaboration and adaptation. I stepped forward then, activating a new set of holograms. The chamber watched in stunned silence as we displayed the results of our secret joint exercises with primitive species the Council had rejected for membership. Species that, like us, had been deemed too aggressive, too emotional, or too unpredictable. Together, we had created defense strategies that no logic-driven system could predict. The high speaker's gaseous form swirled violently as it processed what this meant. Humanity hadn't just exposed their secrets. We had found a completely different solution to the very problem they had failed to solve. But before anyone could respond, our quantum sensors detected something that made everything else seem trivial. The threat the Council had feared for millions of years, it wasn't coming anymore. It was here. Deep space monitors across 3 sectors started going dark, one after another. The patterns matched exactly what the Zeth had described, but it was happening centuries ahead of their predictions. Ambassador Chen's voice cut through the growing panic. "Now you have a choice," she said, her words echoing through the chamber. "You can either continue believing that your way is the only way, or you can join us in trying something that's never been done before." She paused, looking directly at the high speaker. "But whatever you decide, know this: Earth and our allies are done asking for permission to save ourselves. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of humanity or the Council, but the survival of all sapient life in our galaxy. And as I watched the Council members struggle with their choice, I realized that we humans had one more surprise in store, something that would either unite the galaxy or tear it apart completely." The Council had exactly 10 minutes to make their decision. That's how long it took for the first wave of the extragalactic threat to reach our outer defense networks. They were like nothing we'd ever seen, massive structures that seemed to bend both space and time around them, making conventional weapons useless. The Council's enhanced species would have been helpless against them. But we weren't conventional, and neither were our allies. Ambassador Chen activated a hidden quantum communicator, and suddenly the chamber's holographic displays lit up with live feeds from across the galaxy. Ships of all sizes and designs were emerging from hyperspace, vessels from dozens of species the Council had rejected or ignored. Each one was equipped with technology that shouldn't have existed according to the Council's carefully controlled development protocols. The high speaker's gaseous form condensed in what I'd learned to recognize as shock. "What have you done?" it asked, its translated voice barely a whisper. That's when we revealed humanity's real masterstroke, Project Symphony. While the Council had been busy trying to enhance individual species, we had been building something unprecedented, a defense network that drew its strength from diversity itself. The supposedly primitive Kargan warriors, with their incredible instincts and unconventional tactics, had helped design our battle strategies. The empathic Novari, rejected for being too emotionally sensitive, had developed early warning systems that could detect threats through quantum fluctuations in spacetime itself. Even the silicon-based Drachnid, dismissed as too rigid in their thinking, had contributed breakthrough advances in adaptive shield technology. As the first wave of the extragalactic threat engaged our combined fleet, something beautiful and terrifying happened. Our ships moved in patterns that made no logical sense, yet worked perfectly together. Each species contributed its unique perspective and abilities, creating a defense that was unpredictable, adaptable, and devastating. The enemy's space-time distortion weapons proved useless against shields that operated on principles they couldn't comprehend. The Council chamber watched in stunned silence as our combined forces not only held the line but began pushing the invaders back. This wasn't just a victory. It was proof that the Council's entire philosophy had been wrong. The very qualities they had tried to engineer out of us, creativity, emotion, instinct, diversity, were the keys to our survival. But just as victory seemed certain, our sensors detected something impossible. The enemy wasn't retreating. They were adapting, learning from each defeat, evolving in real time. Our unified fleet was holding them back, but we were facing an opponent that could match our greatest strength, the ability to change. That's when Ambassador Chen revealed our final card. She turned to the Council and said something that would be remembered for generations. We didn't just prepare for war, we prepared for peace. The quantum communicator activated one last time, displaying a message we had received years ago but kept secret. A message from within the enemy fleet itself. It turned out that the great threat, the devourers of galaxies, weren't a single unified force. They were refugees, countless species fleeing from something even worse in the dark space between galaxies. They attacked not out of malice, but desperation, and now, faced with our unified resistance, they were ready to talk. The Council's chambers erupted in chaos one final time, but this time it wasn't from fear or anger. It was the sound of centuries of assumptions and prejudices crumbling in an instant. As I watched the first diplomatic shuttles depart for the joint meeting with our former enemies, I can't help but smile. Humanity's greatest revenge against the Council wasn't in defeating them or proving them wrong. It was in showing them a better way forward. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would we. 5 years have passed since that historic day in the Council chambers. The galaxy has changed in ways none of us could have imagined. The integration protocol, based on Earth's unity system, has become the foundation of a new galactic society. Where the Council once stood, demanding conformity and enhancement, now stands the Galactic Cooperative, a union of species working together while celebrating their differences. The refugees we once thought were invaders have become some of our most valuable allies. Their experience surviving in the void between galaxies has given us insights into physics and technology we never dreamed possible. More importantly, their warnings about what lies in that darkness have united our civilizations in ways the Council never could. We're no longer preparing for war. We're preparing to explore and understand. The former Council species have adapted remarkably well to the new order, especially after we helped reverse some of their enhancements. The Artarians, once so rigid in their crystalline uniformity, now create art that combines their mathematical precision with emotional expression. The Zeth Collective has discovered that allowing individual variation within their energy forms actually makes their group consciousness stronger and more adaptable. Ambassador Chen retired last year, but not before establishing the Preservation Initiative, a program dedicated to recovering and restoring species affected by the Council's enhancement programs. We've already had our first success. The Nexari, a species everyone thought lost to forced evolution, have begun showing signs of returning to their original creative and dynamic nature. Their children are being born with a spark of individuality that their ancestors were stripped of. Looking out from my new office in the cooperative headquarters, I can see ships of all shapes and sizes moving through the space lanes. Each one represents a different approach to engineering, a different way of thinking, a different perspective on the universe. Together, they're stronger than any unified fleet the Council tried to create through genetic manipulation. The threat from beyond the galaxies is still out there, according to our refugee allies, but we're not facing it with fear anymore. We're facing it with curiosity, preparation, and the combined strength of thousands of unique civilizations. The Council's archives, once used to hide evidence of their failures, now serve as a reminder of what happens when you try to force evolution instead of letting it happen naturally. Perhaps the most surprising change has been in how the galaxy views Earth. We're no longer seen as the primitive, violent species that needed to be fixed. Instead, we're respected for what we've always been: adaptable, resilient, and capable of bringing people together despite their differences. Our emotional nature, once considered a weakness, is now recognized as one of our greatest strengths. As I finish recording this account for the Cooperative's historical archives, I can't help but think about how close we came to losing everything that makes us human. The Council's enhancement initiative wouldn't just have changed our genes, it would have erased the very qualities that ended up saving the galaxy. Our victory wasn't just about outsmarting the Council or proving them wrong. It was about showing the galaxy a better way forward, one where diversity isn't just tolerated but celebrated, where the solution to facing the unknown isn't to make everyone the same, but to bring different perspectives together. They say the best revenge is living well. Earth's revenge was showing the galaxy how to live better, not by changing who we are, but by embracing it. And as we face whatever challenges lie ahead in the darkness between the stars, we'll face them together, each species contributing its own unique strength to our shared future. After all, that's the human way.